Now this comes as Michael Gove, the UK Secretary of State for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, have proposed new regulations for short-term rentals in holiday resorts and hotspots, those listed on the Airbnb. This is typically places like Devon and the coast and Cornwall and Norfolk, where there has been an explosion in short-term rental properties going on the market, and this is having a negative effect on the local property market, again pushing up prices for locals who then get priced out of the market in their own town. So there's some sympathy there for that situation, but critics have argued that they're really hitting landlords due to when the real problem is the government failure to build more housing and social housing. So under these new plans, local councils would have the power to require property owners to obtain planning permission before renting out their properties for short-term rentals, but I thought this was already the case. In fact, they would also allow councils to regulate the number of short-term rentals in the area. So there's a twofold thing going on there, and to ensure that they don't have a negative impact on long-term housing. The regulations would also require Airbnb hosts to register their property with their local councils and comply with safety and hygiene standards, which seems like a nonsense really, because if you're doing a holiday let, you've obviously got to have hygiene and good safety standards, otherwise you wouldn't get it let. You'd immediately get a bad rating on Airbnb. But these things they're not law yet. These regulations have not yet been implemented. They're talking about it. Michael Gove is proposing it. It remains to be seen how they'll be received by the public and Airbnb hosts. The news will nevertheless be another worry for landlords and these regulation weary landlords in the UK. Now we know that during the last few years, when people couldn't go abroad, when I think it was illegal to go abroad on holiday, a lot of people had holidays in the UK and headed for the coast and nice places to have holidays. But the cost of these properties shot up. I mean, whereas you might sort of rent a property for sort of $1,000 or $1,500 a week, the next year it was $1,500 and more like $2,500, £4,000 to rent the same type of property. So there has been an explosion. And at the same time, we've seen lower yields on buy-to-lets. I've talked about this in some of my podcasts, that the yields don't add up with the higher interest rates. So a lot of landlords have been switching to this model called serviced accommodation, or SA, and this means that they can get higher rentals, much higher profits on their property, even after taking into account higher management costs and providing services and paying for the bills and all that sort of thing. That the rents are, imagine if you can get, for a 3-bed house, £3,000-4,000 a week during the summer months. This is sort of from June to the end of August. That's a lot of money. Whereas the same house might only rent out for £1,500 or £2,000 a month on a normal rental. Then you've got the regulation as well. There's in a way there's less regulation on this type of property because you don't have to serve a Section 21 notice to get people out. They're on a short-term let with Airbnb, and at the end, just like a hotel, you leave at the end of that period. But we've already got the threat. Well, it's not a threat; it's a plan to abolish Section 21 no-fault evictions for buy-to-let landlords. Let's distinguish between buy-to-let and serviced accommodation or holiday let. Different rules, different regulations, different tax treatments. You get a better tax treatment if you're running a holiday let business than you do as a buy-to-let landlord. And again, this is the fault of the government tinkering with things. George Osborne, the famous George Osborne, tinkering with the laws whilst his money was offshore allegedly. So he's killed the buy-to-let market, in my opinion, and thousands of landlords have switched their business now to holiday lets, A, to make a bit more money, and B, to avoid this problem of getting people out at the end of their term. So as I wrote myself, as many as 85,000 landlords have quit the buy-to-let market in recent years due to higher taxes, government red tape, and now we've got the abolition of Section 21 and higher EPC energy rating standards, which are going to be difficult for many landlords to comply with in older style properties. So we've got this double and triple whammy of problems imposed upon landlords, treating landlords like lepers, to be honest, but by a government that's supposed to be small business friendly, and yet these landlords have just been treated so badly by a conservative government. I'm not getting political here, but these things would almost be brought in by a Labour government. And you can see here that people in his own party, in Michael Gove's own party, are criticising him. This is the plan here. I don't know if you can see this. It was in the Times yesterday. Gove, that's Michael Gove, under fire for a plan to curb Airbnb in tourism hotspots. Been criticised by Simon Clarke, criticised Gove over plans that would force homeowners to seek planning permission if they wanted to offer their properties in holiday lets, and also by the famous Jacob Rees-Mogg, whose constituency is down in that area, down in Somerset, lovely part of the world, and described him as a misplaced response to the government's failure to build more homes. A misplaced response. Yes, I agree with you, Jacob. Of course, Jacob is no longer a minister. He was under the Boris Johnson regime, so he's no longer able to get involved with governments, so he can sit on the sideline and criticise the government, basically. So that's what's going on there. And as I said, landlords are not being treated very well by this government, and I would expect a backlash in the voters. But perhaps the government thinks that, well, we can get more votes from tenants who are unhappy about not being able to afford housing, but that's not the landlord's fault, frankly. And maybe they get more votes by getting their sympathy than they could from treating buy-to-let landlords that nobody really likes. Let's face it, who likes them? Tenants don't like them. Maybe the banks do, because the banks can make money on them, but the government don't seem to like them. One former housing minister told me personally, face to face, that they don't like mum and pop landlords, and most landlords are small, one or two property type landlords, maybe have 2 or 3 properties at the most. And they don't like this. He called them mum and pop landlords. We want the corporates. He said, we want the corporates to be running the buy-to-let sector. And that's exactly what's happening. The corporates have got a better tax treatment. They're buying up properties, Lloyd's Bank, hedge funds, buying up properties here, there and everywhere. But look, we know that whenever the government get involved and start regulating things, they F it up, right? They mess things up, because these regulators are what I would commonly call the business prevention unit, right? They are the business prevention unit. Literally, they will always mess things up. So watch this space, as we see, because we've already seen with these landlords quitting, we've already seen less properties coming on the market, and rents are going up. There's a shortage of rental properties. That's what happens when you tinker with things and bring in too much red tape and over-regulate. Landlords just pull out and say, right, we've had enough. I'm just fed up with this. I've just had enough. Right now, there could be other reasons why landlords are pulling out. Could be due to higher interest rates. Millions of people are remortgaging this year and will face higher interest rates. It could also be that a lot of landlords are getting to that stage where they're retiring and thinking of selling up. Maybe they move abroad, or maybe they pay off some of their mortgage debt and sell off 1 or 2 properties. Who knows? Now, could there be a property crash this year? Well, who knows? I'm going to come on to that in a second, because next Wednesday I've got a free training session to help people with money, finance, debt, not only to survive the threat of recession, but to come out stronger in a recession. So I've got a free training webinar, 3 steps to success money management, 8 p.m. Wednesday. I'll put a link up in the description somewhere, so you can check that out. Absolutely free. I'll go through an hour's training with you to give you some tips on managing your money, to first of all get control of your finances, secondly to start building wealth, and thirdly to maintain that consistency so that you can build wealth and become financially free. Getting back to property, could there be a crash? Well, frankly, there could be. Property prices surged during the period of 2020 to 2022 by as much as 25% across many areas in the UK, but that's coming back now, and they've fallen back by more than 4% from that peak, according to March figures from the Nationwide Building Society. Prices have fallen for 5 consecutive months as the Bank of England raises interest rates and struggles to control inflation. So we've seen, as they keep popping up interest rates, prices fall back. I know as an estate agent, demand has fallen. properties are not selling so fast. In a year or so ago, you're on a waiting list to buy a property. That's not the case now. But does this mean a 2008 style crash, when in 2008 prices crashed and bottomed by 2009 and slowly started creeping up again? Well, could be. I mean, we don't know. It depends on the government action, what they do to save the market, as they're trying to do with the stock market and inflation. Because no Prime Minister, and Rishi Sunak does not want to face an electorate in a general election by 2024 in the midst of a housing slump, right? They don't want to, housing is so important to the UK economy that no president or Prime Minister wants to see a massive housing slump, people losing their houses, people getting into trouble, and then go to the election and the opposition party says, we will solve your problems, vote for me and I'll set you free. No, they don't want that. So they're going to do their best to keep the housing market intact, to keep it growing, because a lot of jobs depend on housing, banks depend on housing. If there's a slump, some banks could be in trouble if there's a housing slump. So let's see what happens. We don't know what's happening. I personally think there'll be a stock market massive correction, and that normally after a stock market crash or stock market correction, property normally follows, but in a slower way. It depends on whether we can avoid a recession. It depends on lots of things, right? So let's see what happens, and then we'll see where we go from there. But just be careful, be cautious out there. Now, as I said, Wednesday 8 p.m. we've got a 1 hour seminar webinar to help you manage your money, get control of your finances, and learn how to build wealth and become financially free over time. It's not a get rich quick scheme, but it's learning how to be financially free and how to control your finances. So I'll hopefully will see you there 8 p.m. I'll put a link up in the description, and we'll get you started on that. So thanks very much.